Welcome back to the channel, everybody. This is Kodeations coming at you today with another video on Genshin Impact. That is right, we're going to be giving you guys a ultimate cooking guide. I'm going to give you all of the information that I know about cooking, why cooking is important, how to cook the basic way and the advanced method, and then I'm going to basically be showing you guys all of the tips and tricks when it comes to cooking and why is 100% crucial, especially on day one of starting in the game. But before we jump into it, ladies and gentlemen, if you are new to the channel, as always, please be sure to hit that red subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you get a notification every time we drop a video. We are on our way to that 2K sub mark. Thank you guys very much for the love and support. Let's jump right in. Diving right in, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be taking a look at cooking in the world of Genshin Impact. And the first thing we have to address right off the bat for those new beginners in Genshin, or just now loading into the game, or maybe you have been playing the game a couple of days and you have yet to actually cook a single item, we need to discuss how exactly do you cook in the game. Well, right off the bat, it's going to be a cooking pot, right? So most players have already discovered this. If you haven't discovered this, then congratulations, you've discovered it. So you're going to visit a cooking pot. Now, in these standard looking cooking pots can vary a little bit. They're going to look pretty much all the same, but some of these cooking pots will actually vary when it comes from enemy camps to random explorers in the world that you stumble across. Sometimes there's just random abandoned camps that you can actually visit and you know, light those fires. By the way, side tip, you light those fires using a hero or a fire hero of some sort with a fire ability, aka Amber, the free hero that you get in the game. You can actually light enemy fires that are not lit, and then aka unlocking the ability to cook at that specific campfire. But nevertheless, you're going to have these campfires. You can find these in enemy camps. You can find these, like I said, at abandoned camps. You can find these, you know, talking to random NPCs. They're sometimes sitting around camps. Just a load of different ways to find them in the actual open world. But none other than cities are another great way to actually find abilities. They're not really cooking pots in that case, they're actually cooking ovens, but nevertheless you can actually basically access the same sort of recipes and cook in the cities as well. But that's going to basically be exactly where you cook. Now, how does cooking work? And the basic method behind cooking, right, is that you want to go to a cooking pot, you access the cooking pot, and then once you get to that point, you're going to be greeted with all of the recipes across, you know, across your screen that you can automatically craft, right? Like, again, if you have been talking to NPCs, as you should 100% be doing in the game, as you talk to NPCs, you will sometimes unlock new recipes. Sometimes you'll get recipes for rewards from quest or side quest. Sometimes specifically talking to chefs and everything, you can actually buy some of those recipes. Basically, there's a vast majority of ways to get recipes, but right off the bat, you're starting into the game, you don't have anything really besides what the default recipes are loaded into your inventory. And like I said, so that kind of leads me into the next point. You basically click on the recipe that you want to craft, and then once you start crafting it, as long as you have those specific amount of ingredients, you'll actually be able to get that slider bar as you see right now on screen. And that slider bar, you basically need to hit the stop button once that slider bar hits into that dark orange color, and that's going to basically what they're going to call perfect it, or basically make a perfect dish or quality of that dish. And so the reason why that's very important is that if you just stumble like this and you don't make a perfect dish, that dish's quality will actually not be as good. And so I'll show you those two here on screen so you can kind of see the difference between making a non-perfect dish and then a perfect dish. Now, this does go into a little bit of more of advanced information, but as you create a dish over and over again, that same exact dish or that same exact recipe over and over again, your proficiency level on creating that will actually go up. So you can see that this number on the very, very top above the slider, you can see that 1 out of 5 or 1 out of 4, 1 out of 3, however many basically proficiencies, geez Louise, that it needs to be, you know what I mean, determines on when you can unlock what they call the auto cook feature. So once you complete all of those proficiencies, basically hitting that perfection mark that many times, basically, you will actually be able to unlock a feature called auto cooking, and then you can actually click on that recipe, click the auto feature, and it will look something like this. It'll just instantly craft it at that perfect mark, and you don't actually have to worry about that slider bar anymore. Again, very, very nice, and you want to try to get most of your recipes that you're going to constantly use, especially early game, to that auto cooking spot. And the reason why you want to do that is because of time consumption, right? You don't want to have to go to a cooking pot, stop for a second, you're stopping your adventure, you're sitting at a cooking pot, you have to spend several, you know, times actually cooking it, clicking the slider button, making sure you try to get it on perfect, and all that sort of jazz. It just takes up a lot of extra time. So in allowing that auto cooking feature to be put into the game, it basically cuts down on a lot of your cooking time. And not only that, it allows you to, in the heat of the moment, run over, pop open a cooking window if you absolutely had to. I don't advise doing this, but popping over to a window really quick to actually craft something really fast if you absolutely need it in a desire or in a dire need. But again, that's going to be a short version of exactly how to cook in the game. Now, moving on to some of the other information that loads of players need to know right now, and that is going to be, where do you get ingredients? So if you go to any of these recipes that you can see on screen, each one of them requires ingredients. Some of them require similar ingredients, some of them require absolutely completely different ingredients, and some of those even require what I would like to call like an upgraded version, or actually a specific almost like a sub requirement ingredient, and you can actually get that from the second tab in your cooking. So if you actually click into the cooking pot, you click over to the second tab, you can see that there's actually a set of ingredients that you can actually craft that are utilized into specific recipes that aren't necessarily really ingredients that you can farm out in the world. It's more based upon you have to create a separate ingredient from ingredients, right? Does that kind of make sense? If it doesn't make sense, I apologize. But nevertheless, ingredients in the world, the number one way, in my opinion, to get ingredients in this game, and I think it's actually the most fun way to get ingredients, is going to be just obviously, honestly, scavenging, right? You can, in the vast open world of Genshin Impact, you can find loads and loads and loads of just free resources littered across the map, right? And that's going to be anything from like fruit on the trees that you have seen and probably picked up already, to flowers around ponds, flowers on top of like mountains or cliffscapes, basically, you know, pine cones on the ground, mushrooms around trees, apples that have fallen down. You could pretty much find loads of free resources anywhere in the vast open world. And in my opinion, I think that's going to be the best and the most fun way in the game to collect resources. Nevertheless, because not only are you collecting resources and you're trying to find some of these items, but you're also, you know, exploring, you know, stumbling across enemy camps, destroying boxes and crates. You're basically discovering other loot in other areas in the game that you might not necessarily have visited if you weren't on a scavenge hunt. So again, not a bad way to go. The second thing that you can do right off of the bat is you can, yes, buy with in-game currency. You can buy specific items from specific vendors. Now, some of these vendors you can find in cities, which is not a bad way to go if you're in a time crunch and you're looking for something specific and you're not really sure exactly where to hunt them. And then not only that, you can find some of those vendors also like off the beaten path or on specific paths in the game that are, you know, specific. So for instance, this girl here on screen, she is a botanist in the game. You can stumble across her. I don't know what her time is like. I don't know if she's always in this area, if she's only in this area at a certain scheduled time in the game. I'm not really sure exactly the advancement on her actual path in the game, but I do know that you can access her inventory, you can spend in-game currency, and you can buy a select of items. Not every item, but you can buy a select set of items that she does have for offer for, you know, for purchase. So again, that's another way to do that. And then not only that, you need to also keep note of some of where the areas of basically ingredients do spawn, or, you know, it's a luscious area for that specific ingredient. And now if you don't already know, you can actually go to your map and you can actually drop waypoints or markers. Now, I don't suggest doing this all the time because I think you do have a limited number of markers that you can actually drop in the game specifically. But nevertheless, if you are finding yourself constantly needing a specific ingredient for a recipe that you absolutely love or you want to take advantage of, you know, to utilize the most when crafting at cooking pots, then I highly recommend dropping maybe a temporary pin on your map, you know, to apples or, you know, some fruit trees or some type of flower around a pond that you absolutely, you know, need for those recipes. Because again, it just eases up and makes your time way more efficient in the long run. Now, that leads me into the next thing when it comes to recipes. As you can see on your screen, there are different tiers or different what I would call qualities or basically, you know, rarities when it comes to the different recipes. Now you can see right off the bat, you have your basic bare bones gray recipes. A lot of those are going to be 1-star, 2-star recipes, and then you can get all the way up to those 5-star recipes. Now, the reason why you would like to take advantage of the different tier levels of the recipes is because the different tier levels offer different types of benefits. So some of these are going to be buffs, some of these could be debuffs depending on if it's something you're not supposed to really eat or the game is like, you know, a trickery, a recipe. A lot of these are going to obviously give you that HP percentage, whether it's instant or whether it's over time. Basically, it's going to be a load of different stuff, but also with the higher tier recipes, even though they have awesome buffs or way better stuff to take advantage of with crafting that recipe, also entails higher tier ingredients that could be a lot more difficult to get. So again, it's going to be one of those things where you're just going to have to take it for what it's worth. If you can find those ingredients, awesome. Drop a waypoint on your map just so you know that you can come back to that spot and potentially harvest some more of that resource. Otherwise, again, it's going to be one of those things you're going to have to scavenge those out or potentially buy them from a vendor if you're having zero luck finding that specific ingredient. But that is just one of those things to note when it comes to the different tiers. Now, right off the bat in the game, you might be asking yourself, well, Kodeations, what tier do you recommend me making right off the bat? I just loaded into the game. Maybe I'm a day or two into the game. Maybe I've only played a couple hours into the game. And right off the bat, I would 100% recommend reading the recipes. Read the buffs that they give, read how much HP they give, make sure you are perfecting those recipes, whichever one you do choose to run. And not only that, it does kind of play a little bit on your characters. I mean, doesn't have to, but definitely some of the characters that you will get early on, like Noelle, has a food buff. And now it is specific to like defense, for instance, but if you're running, a defense hero on your team, you need to feed her. It's not a bad way to go because you can take advantage of that additional buff. So my first strategy right off the bat would be, or my first tip to you would be to read the buffs and pick and choose as you will according to the buff. But nevertheless, if you go to a cooking pot, in my opinion, always craft the highest tier that you can. Now, if you are, again, are going into a situational, fight or something that you might need more, more quantity over quality because of, sustainability, then again, maybe that's what you do. Instead of taking that 3-star recipe that you can only craft one, maybe making more of the 2-star recipes with using the same ingredients would benefit you in the long run. But again, it's going to be at your own discretion. And moving on to the next thing on the list, we're almost done with the video here, is going to be not just for HP. So a lot of people make the massive mistake when it comes to cooking in this game. I think there's loads of players out there that aren't even cooking. They're not even taking advantage of the cooking system. Now, if you don't already know, your character's HP generates like horrible. I mean, it's just god-awfully slow. If at all sometimes, and with that being the case, that's where cooking's going to come into play. You can actually utilize that food and those recipes in order to boost your HP, but the game goes a step further by actually giving you buff-specific recipes, whether that means if you take a look at some of these on the screen here that are, XP boost. I mean, from a first-time player in the game, taking advantage of that is going to be huge. So again, get in there and craft this, recipes for specifically for early game. Another one is going to be basically buffs around specific units or heroes. Like I said, taking advantage of that is going to give you a massive difference. Some of these recipes, I don't have one currently, but some of these recipes can boost your stats by a long shot, by like 300 points, guys. That is absolutely insane. I mean, that's completely game-changing when it comes to actually utilizing cooking. So again, don't make the mistake and think it's only for HP. There's a lot more to cooking than meets the eye. Now, the last thing I want to get into for the video is just going to be some simple tips and tricks that I basically am passing along to you that I have picked up and I have learned. And one of those is going to be, I've already mentioned, is going to be you want to try to craft a recipe on that perfect mark to hit that max proficiency with that recipe, so that way you can 100% unlock the auto cooking. The auto cooking feature saves me so much time, and it's 100% worth it. Now, the next thing up that I wanted to mention is make sure you are cooking every single cooking pot. So what I mean by that is you go to an enemy camp, you kill enemies, and there is a cooking pot there. I highly suggest stopping, taking a quick second, popping open the cooking pot, lighting the cooking pot if you haven't done so already with a fire ability, and then cooking on it anything and everything that you can craft and cook. And the reason why I say that is because you never know when you're going to come to a, situation where you need that HP, you need that instant revival on their heroes, and you don't have any items made or any type of cooking materials made. And again, it's going to either kill that hero, or you're going to struggle a lot more, or basically whatever the situation is, you never know when you're going to come across that. So take advantage of every one of those cooking pots. I cannot stress it enough. Now, the next thing is going to be double check what you are cooking. And now this goes a little bit back into that last point that I mentioned, is don't just get in here and craft a recipe that's a 1-star or a 2-star recipe just because you have the abundance of materials. Some of those materials or some of those ingredients are actually going to be used for higher tier recipes, and some recipes are going to be way better than other ones. So make sure you are double checking the recipes, what you are crafting, and utilizing exactly what you need or what the best option is that you have at your disposal. But ladies and gentlemen, I think that's going to be it for me. I have taken up way too much of your time on a cooking recipe, and I hope this breaks down enough of the cooking in Genshin Impact to give you guys a little bit of a better understanding when it comes to why cooking is so important and why you should be taking advantage of it on day one. So without further ado, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get a notification every time I drop a video, and I will see you guys on the next one.